So this evening we're going to focus on calming an anxious, flitting brain, or getting stuff done. So one of the symptoms that you may recognise of anxiety, and quite a common one, is this flitting brain, so a mind that just can't stay still and focus on one thing. And quite often for me, like my presentations are when I start something, like I'll start the washing up and then wander off and my other half will say, are you going to finish that? And I'll say, have I not finished it? So that for me is always like a little warning sign when I'm starting to get really overwhelmed and I need to do something about it before that gets worse. So I thought it would be useful to start off with if I just explain like why this happens, when we're anxious and we suffer from anxiety, why we have this going on with our brain, why our brain does this flitting thing. So essentially what's happening here is when we're feeling anxious and we've got the feelings of anxiety in our body, this is created in the mind. So it's basically the mind will create the scenarios that cause us to be anxious. So it's normally when we're flitting forward to the future and we're worrying about something that's yet to happen, and we create stories around that thing that's yet to happen, and then we create more stories and we make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And these stories result in our brain releasing hormones into our body to give us a fight and flight response. And the reason that those hormones get released is because the brain is actually thinking, I'm in danger, so I might need to run or to fight. So we get these fight and flight hormones. And the result of that is that the brain also goes into this sort of what's called hypervigilant state. So the brain is constantly at that point scanning for further signs of danger. And this is why we get this flitting, why we can't concentrate, because the brain is always being like, is that dangerous? Is that dangerous? Is that dangerous? And the way you may recognise this in yourself, and when I recognise it in clients, is, hi finders keepers, hello, is that you will see like very wide eyes, or someone's eyes flitting all over, and this is this looking at this hypervigilance. So this is why it's happening. And then the useful thing for you is like, what can I do about this now that you know why it's happening? So the first thing is we need to try and calm our bodies down, because if we can calm the signals from our bodies, our brain will also start to feel calmer and will not need to do this hypervigilant checking. That's the first thing. The second thing you may not be so keen on, but it is actually really true. The second thing is practice. So when we get into the habit of allowing our brain to just constantly flick, this is it's called a neural pathway, so that the path within the brain that we get used to going down. And if you think about, say, like a Buddhist monk that can sit there for hours on end, meditating, completely still, that hasn't happened from birth. That monk has had to practice that. And I'm not going to ask you now to sit here for 2 hours still, but this is all practice. We all have this ability to be one centre focused, but it takes practice. And the more we practice being one centre focused, the easier it is. The more we allow our brain to flit, the easier that becomes. So it's basically what we practice is what we become. So we're going to practice, and I'm going to give you a couple of things that will really help you to do this practice today. So the first thing we're going to do is to calm the body down, and that will then bring more calmness to the brain and allow the brain to be a little more one-centred. So to calm the body down, we always want to breathe through the nose, first of all, not the mouth. If we're breathing through the mouth, the brain will become more heightened. So when you breathe through the mouth, you're going to give that signal to the brain that there's something to worry about. So first of all, we're going to breathe through the nose, and we're going to extend the exhale over the inhale. So with the nervous system response, when we inhale, we move our nervous system into a more aroused state. When we exhale, we move our nervous system into a more relaxed state. So therefore, if we extend the exhale to be longer than the inhale, we're going to feel more relaxed. So let's do that now. Wherever you happen to be, just find a chair with a supported back and just sit with me with your back against the chair. And we're just going to do a couple of inhales and longer exhales. So we're going to inhale for a count of 4. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is through the nose. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we're doing 4, 6. You can do 4, 7. If you can get to 7 on the exhale easily, do 4, 7. You might want to start at 6, and then you'll find if you do it for a little while, you'll be able to then go 4 and 7. So that's the first thing. We're going to do that. When we're finding ourselves flitting, we're just going to be like, okay, I need to give my body time to calm. So I'm just going to sit here for like a couple of minutes and just do a few rounds of that. Inhale for 4, exhale for 7. I can see there's some questions in the chat. I'll come to you in a second. I'll just show you the techniques and then I'll come to any questions you might have. Okay, so if we're inhaling for 4, exhaling for 7. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, so this is the practice part of it, and my whiteboard up here, I know it's back to front for you and I'm really sorry, but I'm using the front facing camera on my phone and that flips everything round. The only other way I can do it is to use the back facing camera, then I can't see who's on the session, so it's like talking to a void. So it's a bit of a like, you know, what's the worst thing. So what we're going to do, I want you to just grab a piece of paper and a pen, and I'm going to give you a second to do that. So let me just give you a second to grab a piece of paper and a pen. And we're going to have a mantra. This is the practice piece, and this you have to pick for you what's the time that you're able to do to start with before your brain will start to wander. So what I normally do with clients when I'm teaching this at the first time is we do a mindful something, and it's something that they would do during the day where they can just do that one focused thing. So just pick something that you would normally do. Could be cleaning your teeth. So while you're cleaning your teeth, you're going to just clean your teeth, and as your brain flits, which it naturally will when you first try this, you're just going to bring your brain back and you're going to say to yourself, one thing at a time, and go back to cleaning your teeth. One thing at a time, one thing at a time. So this is just practice, okay? We're not going to allow us to flit. You can't often like wander off and do something. Well, maybe you do wander off and do something after you're cleaning your teeth, but the cleaning the teeth one's good because you sort of have to stand there in one place. Other stuff that you're doing around the house, you can normally like wander around. So with your piece of paper, if you've managed to go and get that, I just want you to, with me, we're just going to do this, and I'm going to do it on my whiteboard. You're going to write on your piece of paper one thing at a time, and we're going to set a timer, and we're just going to do this for like 30 seconds, okay, and just see if we can focus on the one thing at a time. Let me find my timer on my watch for 30 seconds. Timer, okay. Okay, right. So on your piece of paper and with me, we're just going to start writing, starting now, and I will tell you when 30 seconds is up. You're going to just write one thing at a time. Okay, and just keep writing that. Your mind will start to wander. As soon as your mind wanders, you bring yourself back to these words, one thing at a time, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. You might also want to build in, and you could do this, you could build in the breath work as well. You could do the breathing as you're doing it, one thing at a time. Okay, that's 30 seconds. So I don't know how easy you found that. You might want to just put that in the chat. How easy did you find the 30 seconds? And you can build that up. So what you might want to do, you might want to start with just like the 30 seconds doing that, or the cleaning the teeth. You could then build to making a cup of tea, for example. So, you know, that will take slightly longer than 30 seconds. So again, whilst we're making the cup of tea, what a lot of people do, and I used to do before I practiced this, was you would put the kettle on and then you'd have a little wander off and have a look at your phone or do something else in the kitchen. But we're just going to stand there for the time that it takes the kettle to boil. And the other thing we're going to do as we're waiting for the kettle to boil is be really mindful around like listening to the sound of the kettle. So we're bringing ourselves to using all of our senses to keep the mind just one centre focused. Sorry, my watch is doing its You finished your 30 seconds, and that's annoying me because it's buzzing on my wrist. Okay, so with the kettle, we're just letting it boil and just really focusing on the sound of the water. And then when you actually pour the water into the cup, really noticing the sound of the water pouring into the cup, if you can smell anything, if it's tea or coffee. So you're bringing all your senses into play, and that will really help you to fix onto one thing at a time. So that's the two things I wanted to show you today. Very easy and quick things. This is all practice. With all things anxiety, I teach these I have a membership club. So these things I'm teaching you now are quick hacks. If you really are ready to sort of really get a full grip on anxiety and you want some help with that, I have a membership club that includes 2 live sessions with me every month and online lessons where I'll teach you what's going on in the brain. So basically, like I did at the beginning of this session, so I think it really helps people to understand why things are happening before we then go on to, okay, what do we do about that? So if you'd like to know a little bit more about that, just put yes in the chat and I can send you some information on the club. Let me just have a look at the questions that I had in the chat. So, okay, so finders keepers, if you're still on, you just mentioned that you've got bad wave of anxiety and IBS. So IBS and anxiety is so common. IBS and gut issues, really common. That was my presentation. So I had IBS and migraines probably once a fortnight until I learned these techniques, and I haven't had an IBS episode now for over 4 years. So this is using like the techniques, like the natural techniques that I teach, connection to the body, and also the release techniques, which I don't do on these Instagram live sessions because they're longer sessions, but they allow the body to release any stored tension, trauma, and that's often the underlying cause of IBS is held tension or trauma in the body.